Our friend Fraser, the shorthand novice turned expert, has been asked to contribute some reminiscences of his experiences in his early days of using shorthand outside of the classroom. We know you will forgive the mixed metaphor when we say that he has climbed to the top of his tree, and it is all plain sailing from now on. However, let's allow Fraser to explain his meteoric rise to shorthand distinction in his own unique, incomparable, and unsurpassed manner, as entirely befits the very apt name that Providence has bestowed upon him. He has an uncommon knack of finding le mot juste, and is an expert in unearthing those charming and sometimes charmless turns of phrase in which our splendid and fertile English language abounds. It has been some years now since I left my job as tea maker and envelope stuffer, lowly but essential services that keep the wheels of commerce turning. I had decided to pursue a shorthand career, and I knew that if I went the whole 9 yards with my studies, it would only be a matter of time before I was having the time of my life as a high flyer in the corporate world. Little did I know that those far-off days were the quiet before the storm, and that the writing was on the wall for my undemanding 9-to-5 job in a gloomy basement dispatch office. I was working my fingers to the bone, delivering folders, stuffing envelopes, and stamping letters, all to earn enough dosh to pay for each day's square meal. After my shorthand studies, I had been promoted to shorthand writer within the firm, but now I wanted to stretch my wings in the wide world beyond. I was really a diamond in the rough in shorthand terms, but armed with my shorthand certificates, I headed for the job agency to offer my services as a temp note-taker. I knew I had to play my cards right, and so I took to power dressing, consisting of a sharp suit with knife-edge crease in the trousers and expensive-looking silk tie. I arrived at the agency in the nick of time, just before the heavens opened and it rained cats and dogs. But every cloud has a silver lining, as no one else turned up that day, and I felt I had the pick of the crop with job offers. After some quality time of questioning over my skills, I proved I was no lame duck. The cat did not get my tongue, and I was without a care in the world as I proffered my qualifications. I was given a humble assignment to take the minutes of a short meeting at a small local business. I felt this would be a no-brainer on which I could cut my teeth and fit myself to take on board greater things. The company was as old as the hills, and I was sure that the ancient board members would be talking through their hats, slowly and hesitatingly, and full of clichés, for which I had many excellent shorthand phrases. The assignment would be the life of Riley for me, a prelude to my career really taking off and heading towards the high life, and the pleasant prospect of being a top-notch earner. This would be easy money indeed, until I was ready to take on the real McCoy, up in the city or in the law courts. I arrived very early at the establishment, with my whole kit and caboodle in my smart leather briefcase, with spares of everything and every shorthand pen that I possessed. I was ushered into the boardroom, but a fright awaited me, and whoops-a-daisy doesn't do justice to my reaction. A shiver went down my spine when I saw the size of the antique mahogany table. There were 20 places, all set with sheaves of notes, a glass of water each, and several giant jugs to refill them. Were they really all going to get hoarse from incessant speaking at the meeting? How would I know all their names as they spoke? All of a sudden I was scared out of my wits. I no longer felt as brave as a lion, but weak as a kitten. Far from being as fit as a fiddle, I wondered whether I had got out the wrong side of the bed, as my knees were knocking together. Despite having had a hearty breakfast, my stomach seemed quite empty, and I already felt like I was becoming a bag of bones. I was in danger of falling off the wagon, and it was too late to run a mile. I would have to regain my nerves of steel in a jiffy. I had heard that laughter was the best medicine, but I forgot all my former confident sound bites, and was in no position to be my own spin doctor. Where was my security blanket when I needed it? I sat down at the head of the table, set out my kit, and quickly ran through the documents for special terms. I realised that there was no such thing as a free lunch, and only time would tell if my efforts would peter out, and the whole shebang descend into the pits, with tears before bedtime. I might have to slink back to the agency with my tail between my legs. Maybe I was about to find out that all that glitters is not gold. After a while, the attendees came in and took their places in silence, while I was frantically searching the documents for all their names. The chairman gave his introduction, which was quite easy to record, and then the main speaker began, and he certainly knew his stuff. He seemed to speak at the speed of light. I completely lost track of time as my pen sped over the pages. It all seemed to last an eternity, although it was only half an hour on the clock. There was a smattering of technical terms, but fortunately he kept stopping to look around to see how his comments were being received, to murmurs of "hear, hear" and "yes, yes." That gave me the chance to catch up, write the odd correction, and insert a vowel or two. My outlines were not dictionary perfect, but, as they say, any port in a storm, and as long as I can read it back correctly, all's well that ends well. My shorthand teacher's words were coming home to roost, that there was a need for speed, but haste makes waste. I was relieved when proceedings came to an end, but puzzled as to why only one person spoke out of the 20. Only at the end did I have a chance to look up and around the table. Some were dozing. Some had their heads in their hands, reading the previous minutes or other documents. One or two had started on the biscuits, and had their mouths full, and several were secretly on their mobile phones under the table, as I could see from the reflections in their spectacles. A few were gazing intently but nervously at the speaker, in case they were called on to comment, and hoping they wouldn't. Most surprisingly, 6 of them appeared to be far too young to be on a board of directors, and they all had shorthand pens and pads to hand. What was this? Some sort of kangaroo court, set up by the agency to pass judgment on my wild outlines on my first assignment. Finally, the chairman closed the meeting. My friends and colleagues, now that we have concluded business matters here today, I would just like to thank Fraser for his sterling work in taking the minutes, a job formerly done by my assistant James, who left us last month to take up a job at the local College for Business Studies. James has very kindly encouraged 6 of their best shorthand students to attempt to take notes, and I see that they have all given it their best shot. I think they may have a few questions for the excellent Fraser, who is clearly quite the pro, as he has not shown the slightest sign of pressure or fatigue the whole time. I suggest to the board that we request Fraser's services next time, and I also hope that the students will one day find they are in the same elevated position as they persevere with their studies. I don't have to tell you that I had a grand old time talking to the students, as I was not far off that state myself, and regaled them with tales of the tea trolley, the dispatch room, college studies, and exam escapades. But I had to cut it short, as I was going to be rushed for time in turning in my transcript. Word had already got back to the agency on the board's satisfaction, and there was a message on my phone inviting me to accept another assignment in short order. To make a long story short, providing I and the visiting students all keep up our efforts to improve, we can be sure that we will all live happily ever after in our own adventurous and fascinating shorthand world.